Hi, I'm Weston. I love talking about the Astros, and it's been a while since I've said that. I'm ecstatic to be back talking about the Astros in particular. I've talked about the Jets and the Rangers a lot, and the last Astros news I had were the Springer signing to Toronto, Brantley coming back, and then Castro kind of coming back, but kind of a signing. It depends on how you want to view it. But since then, I've been sort of dead. I haven't talked about the Astros. I've done, Rangers and Jets content, but I haven't done anything for my beloved Astros, the namesake of this channel. And now we're back. Spring training is tomorrow. We take on the Marlins at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I wanted to go over some hopes and just a couple of storylines going into, spring training, but also going into the season next year. I'm just going to start it with the opening day starter for our spring training game tomorrow, Brandon Belak. Now, you might remember, last year he was off to a very hot start through the first 5 games, and then he fell off a cliff. Coincidentally, the last good game he pitched was the 5th game, and I made a joke where I said it be like that sometime. So I don't know if I'm responsible for Brandon Belak choking and not having a good second half to the season, but I certainly feel it in my heart that I am responsible. So in the first 5 games of his major league career, he had a 1.69 ERA, which is nice. And then the last 7 of last year, he had a 16.88 ERA through the last 7 games of his season. That's bad. That is really bad. Now, I don't know what changed, but it just feels like in that San Diego game, something happened. Maybe with the fact that giving up 7 runs in a little over an inning of work will mess with you mentally, but it was rough. He gave up more earned runs in that game than his first 5. He gave up 7 in that one and 4 in his first 5 appearances. So that was bad for Mr. Brandon Belak. Hopefully he can, come back and sort of be that pitcher again like he was in the first 5 games. That'd be nice. Now our bullpen is looking better. We have Will Smith back, or not Will Smith. Joe Smith. I couldn't think of it there. So that is a positive. Hopefully our bullpen will be better than it was last year. I don't think it'll be worse. He's back. Hopefully, Manoli Paredes will continue to be the pitcher that he was last year. I think he will be, because he did a lot of stuff right last year. But if Brandon Belak can be the first 5-game Brandon Belak, we'd be a lot better off. Or even if he could just meet a happy medium. If he could just be a 2.5 ERA guy, a whip right about at 1.1, just a solid bullpen arm, that's all I really want from him. I don't need him to be this ace pitcher that can come out of the bullpen constantly and just dominate games. If he's just a above average, a 130, 125 OPS plus relief pitcher, I'd be okay with that. The next one is Mr. Carlos Correa. Now, obviously, we have the contract thing that we're trying to get started. I don't think there's much word on it other than the fact that they are trying to get a contract done between Correa and the Astros for an extension. But be that as it may, last year Correa in the regular season was pretty okay. I believe a 92 ERA or OPS plus during the regular season. Remember, 100 is average, but for a shortstop, that's okay. And it was very okay for Carlos Correa because he had a fantastic defensive year. I thought he was going to win the Gold Glove. I really thought he should have. He led the American League in defensive runs saved for shortstops. So I think he should have been the Gold Glove. It went to the Mariners shortstop. I forget his name, and I was kind of bummed about that. But he did very, very well in the playoffs. His postseason numbers are kind of shocking. In his 58 regular season games, he had 5 home runs. He had 6 home runs in his 13 postseason games, He also had an on-base of 454 in the playoffs, jumping from a 326 in the regular season. So if Correa can keep that tweak that he made, I don't know if it was to his approach, I don't know if it was to his actual swing, I don't know if it was just to his workout regimen, but if he can keep that going and bat like he did in the postseason, and you get even not that good, but if you can just get a solid 400, even like a 390, 380 on base out of Correa, that is another very, very deadly bat, especially with the way he was hitting in the postseason. That if you could get that over a full season would be insane if that Carlos Correa can show up again. The next player I want to talk about is probably our best pitcher from last year, certainly the one I called our Cy Young, Mr. Framber Valdez, who did receive a Cy Young vote last year. Now, it seemed like he did everything right last year. A lot of teams have that one guy on their roster where, everyone kind of goes, if he could just get it together, he'd be great. Framber Valdez seemingly did that last year. He dropped his ERA from 5.86 to 3.57, which is a dramatic drop. well over 2 runs, just like that. And he pitched 70 and 2/3 innings both in 2019 and 2020. So this wasn't like he was able to drop it, but he pitched way less than the year before. No, he pitched the exact same, down to the out, from one year to the next. He dropped it insanely well, that the ERA dramatically. His ERA plus went from a 79 in 2019 to a 126 in 2020, which is a very dramatic shift. He went from being a below-average starter to being a well-above-average starter. That is according to I believe, on the spectrum of Baseball Reference, that's all-star caliber, or maybe a little bit above. So that's very, very good. He also lowered his walks per 9 a lot. He dropped it from 5.6 to 2 flat, which is insane. And his FIP is also unbelievably fantastic. He dropped his FIP from, and that's fielding independent pitching, that works on the 4 true outcomes that a pitcher can control, which is home runs, walks, strikeouts, and hit by pitches. He dropped that from 4.98 to 2.85, which is insane. That's like 3/4 of a run lower than his actual ERA. So he was very good there. He raised his strikeouts per 9 up a full strikeout, so it went from 8.7 to 9.7, which is very, very good. Now, the Astros, seemingly with Brett Strom, can turn good pitchers into great pitchers and great pitchers into Cy Young candidates. We did that with Verlander and Cole. Verlander was already a fantastic Cy Young pitcher. I don't mean it like that, but we were able to give him a sort of a late career renaissance. Not to the degree of like a Randy Johnson, but a nice renaissance for his final couple years. Hopefully he can be back late this season. That is, he said his goal is to be back in time for the postseason. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I wanted to at least put that out there. So if Framber Valdez can continue to develop at the rate he was last year, and we get another season like that, or a little bit more, like a lower, like 3.3 or lower ERA, that'd be unbelievable. And I have a good feeling about Valdez going into the season. The next person I want to talk about, I'm going to go back to the hitting side of baseball. Jose Altuve. I love him. I love Jose Altuve. He is my favorite Astro of all time that I've ever watched. He was bad last year. Now here's the thing. Here's the great thing about being a fan of a team and players. I can say he was bad. I still like him, and I still think he can bounce back. I actually expect him to bounce back this year. But we need to look at this and say, yeah, he was not good last year. Last year was a rough year. Now granted, almost every single report, every player vouched and testified, everyone on the team was doing it except one, Mr. Jose Altuve. He was the only clean one. Some sources say also Josh Reddick, but everyone says the only one that was 100% clean was Jose Altuve. Now, despite that, he was the face of the cheating scandal, and I think that comes with being the face of the Astros. So that obviously weighed on Altuve a lot last year. You could tell he had a lot of mental struggles with that. And it came out recently that a family member passed away last year during the season. That also weighed on him, I'm sure. Sorry, that's just it bothers me to talk about loss. So, with all that said, in the postseason he turned it around. Not in the first series, not in the 2-game set against Minnesota, but in the ALDS and the ALCS, Altuve raked, and I mean raked. He batted well above 400 in both of the series, had a 526 on base in the ALDS against Oakland, and a 563 against Tampa in the 7-game series for the ALCS. That would have easily been ALCS MVP, to me. Some people probably would have said Correa since he had the walk-off, but for me it would have been Altuve if we were to have won that. He was insane. He also had 6 home runs in the postseason. He had 5 in the postseason and 5 in the regular season. So he was unbelievable in the playoffs. He had such a good, I know I just said it, pitchers would have been better off in those 2 series against Oakland and Tampa. The other pitchers would have been better off flipping a coin to see if Altuve got on base or not than pitching to him with the way he was hitting. That's how insane it was. He was another level in the postseason last year. So hopefully something similar to that. Again, I'm not saying that these numbers are going to continue over a full season. Like, if he would continue those type of numbers over a full season, we're talking about a person that would put Barry Bonds to shame. So I don't expect something like that to carry over for a full 162. I'm just hoping that something similar to that can happen. If Altuve can be, again, like a 380, a 370, a 390 on base, that would make me incredibly happy. If he could sort of have a repeat almost of his 2019 season, the 30 home runs, I don't know if he will hit 30 home runs, especially since they deadened the baseball. Because, that's a thing that happened, even though they've been saying that it was not doctored at all. So I don't know if he's going to hit 30 home runs like he did in 2019, but if he can just have that very high productivity, I believe he had a 131 OPS plus in 2019, so if he could do something similar to that, that would be fantastic for Altuve. The next one up in the the next person I want to talk about, there's what I'm looking for. Another Astros homegrown talent, Alex Bregman. Now, he was doing very, very well last season until the series in Colorado against the Rockies. Now, before the Colorado games in Colorado where he got injured, he was on a 162-game pace for 28 home runs, 95 walks. He was batting .272, and he had an on-base of .374. That's good. That's really good. Not many people are going to complain about that type of a player. Now, after the injury, he was on pace for just 18 home runs, 100 was batting a .97 and an on-base of .315. That's bad. Now, again, Alex Bregman is a fantastic player. We've seen that in the past few years. He was an MVP candidate in 2018. It was so close. Like, I think Mike Trout obviously deserved it in 2019, but it was close. But was the runner-up in 2019, and seemingly on the first half of the season for Bregman last year, looked like he was going to have another very solid, very productive season, and then the knee injury happened. But seemingly he's all healed. He's had time to heal from it. There was a rumor that said he had tweaked his hamstring in spring training, and that might limit him in spring training, but then moments after that, he tweeted and said if the season started tomorrow, I'd be fine and perfect. So I'm not going to read too much into that, but I did want to mention that just because I'm talking about Bregman. But I'm hoping to see another 2018-2019 first half of 2020 season by Alex Bregman. Second to last person I want to talk about is Lance McCullers Jr., one of my favorite pitchers. His home and away splits for 2020 were kind of absurd. At home, he was Randy Johnson in his prime, and on the road, he was somewhere between a blind snowman and a tired sloth. Okay. 5 home starts for Lance McCullers Jr. He was 3-0, a 1.42 ERA, which is insane. 33 strikeouts, 7 walks, a whip of .758, and 5 earned runs, so averaging 1 earned run per start. That's unbelievable. That's fantastic. Like, Lance was dominant, and that was at home without the fans, and he feeds off of the energy that comes with fans. So the fact that he was doing that well just at home with no fans is very encouraging. Gulp. Now, on to the road splits, which those are not as kind to Mr. Lance McCullers Jr. In 6 road starts, he was 0-3, a 7.33 ERA, 23 strikeouts, 13 walks, a whip of 1.714, and 19 earned runs in 6 starts. Which is... I can't remember a time I've seen a road and away split, or a road and home split, that's that dramatic and that polar opposite. If we can get... home Lance McCullers next year, we have the Cy Young. If he can pitch all the way through the season like he did at home last year, we have the Cy Young. It's no question. Like, those are insane numbers to keep up over a season. If we get Mr. Road McCullers, we are in for a long season. Now, again, it's possible since, he might do this again, that it could be a split right down the middle. Maybe he's fine. I'm hoping that he's going to be better because I love Lance McCullers Jr., so I just wanted to bring those up. Again, hopefully we get the home Lance McCullers. But those splits are insane. And, granted, he also did pretty well in the playoffs. So he did, especially in the Tampa series, I thought he was very good. He had that gem in Game 1 or Game 2 of the ALCS. I believe he struck out 13 Rays in like a 1 earned run game. So he was picking up, and that was away. So that gives me some hope. But yeah, I wanted to bring up Lance McCullers. And the last person I want to bring up, the Rookie of the Year from 2019, the unanimous Rookie of the Year, the only person in 2019 who had maybe not the only person, but a person who had a higher weighted runs created plus than Michael Trout, who was the MVP in 2019, Mr. Yordan Alvarez. Now, obviously, his 2019 was a whirlwind. He hit 27 home runs, was on pace for like 50 some for a full season. He was insane at the plate. He was batting like 315 thereabouts and had an on base well over 400. Everyone remembers Yordan's rookie campaign. And last year, in his first at-bat, Mr. Yordan Alvarez hit a home run, and it was a monster shot into the Crawford boxes. And at that moment, every Astros fan that I remember was just going, he's back. And then, after that game, I believe he played one more, and then the injury happened that took him out for the rest of the season, which sucked, because, we won like 14-1 or 14-2. We scored 9 runs in that first inning. So, and he also had a opposite field hit in that game, if I'm not mistaken. My memory is weird. But Yordan is such an exciting prospect to have. Obviously, I think he's going to continue to be great. Because it wasn't like he came in 2020 and had, a few plate appearances and was bad or anything. He was still normal Yordan. He came in for like one game and hit a monster mammoth home run, and I believe he drew a walk in that game. So I fully expect another great season by Yordan Alvarez. I believe he's the 7th or 8th odds-on favorite for AL MVP, which is insane to me that they're putting him at such a high odd for a person who hasn't even played a full 162 yet. But yeah, Yordan Alvarez gives me hope. But the storyline with Yordan, now I've thought this for a while, and I thought about making a video about this, and I kicked myself because I didn't. The Astros will be working him out and playing him a little bit during spring training at first base. Now, I love this idea, right? This is wonderful. This is perfect to me. This doesn't have the stress on his knees of playing in the outfield where he might have to run a lot. It's not going to weigh on his arm trying to throw it in from the outfield. And Yuli Gurriel he had a down year last year pretty significantly, and he's getting older. I believe he's 36, going to be 37 midway through the season. So he's not a young pineapple anymore. He is a older piña who is in the twilight of his career. So I love the thought of working Yordan at first base. This year can still belong to Yuli 100%. Yordan can DH. That's fine. Next year, I would say split the time, and then the year after that, fully turn the reins over to the young stud DH and power hitter in Yordan Alvarez. That's my dream scenario for that. So, that is all that I wanted to talk about for some of the players going into 2021. I am super ecstatic. I know it's spring training, but we have baseball tomorrow, and specifically Astros baseball, which excites me. I'm so ecstatic. I will be doing a recap of the spring training game tomorrow, like my normal format. I'm not going to do that for every spring training game. I'm probably going to do one every 3 to 4 days, or maybe once a week. I'll do a spring training video talking about who has surprised me, what our normal players have been doing, and so on like that. But I'm not going to do one for every single spring training game. I just wanted to do one for the first one because I'm super ecstatic and I'm feeling the buzz of baseball. So, that's all I have to say. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day. And I'm so ecstatic to say it again. Go Astros.